In the heart of a bustling city, within the sterile, white-walled halls of healing, a different kind of presence took root. It was not a ghost from a forgotten cemetery, but something born of the modern world, a creature of shadow that moved with a purpose, that watched and waited. This is the story of a silent predator who turned a hospital into a hunting ground, and the nurses who stood on the front lines of a terror they could not comprehend.
Welcome to the dark corners of Miss Whisper's world, where the walls remember every scream and silence isn't safety. It's the warning before what comes next. If you listen closely, you'll hear the stories they tried to bury. Go ahead, lean in, subscribe if you dare, because once you enter, you'll never listen the same again. Shh.
The UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles was and is a beacon of modern medicine, a sprawling complex of glass, steel, and brilliant minds dedicated to fighting death. In the summer of 2016, the staff of one particular ward, a post-operative unit, began to feel a subtle, unsettling shift. It started with the patients, the most vulnerable among them. They were emerging from the fog of anesthesia, their bodies stitched and healing, but their minds were gripped by a specific, recurring fear. They would speak of a figure, a tall, dark silhouette that would appear in their rooms at night. It never spoke. It never touched them. It simply stood at the foot of their beds or in the corner of the room, a man-shaped void against the dim glow of the hallway light, watching them sleep. The nurses at first dismissed it. They were medical professionals, trained to understand the effects of powerful anesthetics and pain medications. It's just the drugs, they will reassure their frightened patients. Post-operative delirium, it's very common. They would check vitals, adjust IV drips, and log the incidents as expected side effects of major surgery. But the descriptions were too consistent. The figure was always tall, always featureless, and its presence was accompanied by a profound, instinctual dread. The patients weren't just confused, they were terrified. One elderly man, a retired engineer known for his stoicism, pleaded with a night nurse not to leave him alone. "The dark man is back," he whispered, his hands trembling as he pointed to the corner. "He just watches." The nurse felt a chill that had nothing to do with the hospital's air conditioning. This felt different. This felt real. The horror evolved from psychological suggestion to tangible physical threat. The reports from patients became more urgent, more detailed. The shadow was no longer just watching, it was moving. A young woman, recovering from abdominal surgery, woke to the sensation of being smothered. She couldn't breathe. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she saw it. The dark figure leaning over her, its formless head just inches from her face. She tried to scream, but only a weak gurgle escaped her dry throat. She flailed an arm, hitting the call button. and as the hallway lights brightened with the nurse's approach, the shadow dissolved backward into the room's darkest corner, vanishing as if it had never been there. When the nurse arrived, the woman was sobbing hysterically, her oxygen saturation levels dangerously low. The equipment began to fail. A patient's heart monitor will flatline for a few seconds, sending a wave of panic through the nursing station, only to spring back to a normal rhythm as staff rushed into the room. The patient will be wide-eyed, gasping, claiming the dark figure had been standing by the machine. IV pumps will inexplicably shut off, halting the flow of critical medication. Call buttons will light up at empty bedsides. The staff's professional composure began to crack. The night shift, in particular, became a trial of nerves. The long, quiet corridors, once a place of quiet reflection, now felt like a gauntlet. Nurses would feel the prickling sensation of being watched from the darkened windows of patient rooms. They started walking in pairs. The cheerful fluorescent hum of the hospital now seemed to mask a deeper, more menacing silence. The climax of the terror was captured on a patient's personal cell phone. Unable to sleep and fearing the return of the dark man, a man named Carlos had propped his phone against his water jug, discreetly recording his room throughout the night. The next morning, he reviewed the footage. For hours, there was nothing. Then, at 3:17 a.m., the motion-activated night vision mode engaged, casting the room in a grainy green glow. A shadow, impossibly tall and thin, detaches itself from the deeper shadows near the closet. It doesn't walk, it glides. It moves to the side of Carlos's sleeping form and stands there, motionless, for a full 2 minutes. Just before it retreats, it seems to lean forward, its featureless head tilting as if in curiosity or examination. Carlos brought the video to the nurses. This was no delirium. This was evidence. The hospital administration, faced with the cell phone video and a growing dossier of patient and staff reports, was forced to act. They launched an internal investigation. Security was increased. Engineers scoured the ward for electrical faults or environmental factors that could cause mass hallucinations. They found nothing. The story, of course, leaked. It was too bizarre, too chilling to contain. The media dubbed the phenomenon a shadow patient. Skeptics offered a barrage of rational explanations. It was a classic case of mass hysteria, they argued, fueled by sleep deprivation and the suggestible state of postoperative patients. The shadow was a common hypnopompic hallucination, a visual phantom scene in the state between sleep and waking. The equipment failures? Coincidence? Or the result of the hospital's aging infrastructure? But those who were there, the nurses who had looked into the eyes of their terrified patients, knew it was more than that. The consistency of the descriptions across different people of different ages and backgrounds was uncanny. The timing of the equipment failures was too specific, too targeted. The cell phone video, while grainy, showed something that defied easy explanation. The haunting, or whatever it was, gradually subsided. It did not end with a dramatic exorcism or a satisfying discovery. It simply faded, as if the presence had gotten what it came for, or had grown bored with its game. The ward returned to a state of normalcy, but the staff who lived there, it were forever changed. They had encountered a mystery at the very intersection of science and the supernatural, in a place where life and death waged a daily war. To this day, there is no official explanation for the events on that ward at UCLA Medical Center. The case remains an open file, a ghost story whispered in nursing schools and hospital break rooms. Was it a collective psychological breakdown? A yet to be understood environmental phenomenon? Or was it something else? A parasitic entity drawn to the vulnerability of the sick and the dying? A shadow feeding on the fear that lingers in the spaces between the beeps of a heart monitor? What do you think? Leave your comments below. In the place where we fight to keep the lights on, remember, it's in the darkness between the pulses that something else might be waiting.